Now think about what was actually happening here. For the people of these regions, years under Chola rule had meant watching their Kannada identity slowly fade, watching their cultural spaces shrink, feeling like outsiders in their own land. Vishnuvardhana was not arriving as a conqueror, he was arriving as a liberator. And he dismissed them entirely. Who are these Hoysalas? He reportedly said, a new child among kingdoms. The region had been renamed Rajarajapura under Chola rule. Vishnuvardhana moved through the empty palace with years of fury burning inside him. The oath of Veeraballala.
ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೇವ ಚೋಳರನ್ನು ಸೋಲಿಸು, ಚಾಲುಕ್ಯರನ್ನು ಮಣಿಸು, ತಲಕಾಡನ್ನು ಮರಳಿ ಪಡೆ, ಹೊಯ್ಸಳರ ಗೌರವವನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಎತ್ತಿ ಹಿಡಿ. ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಅಂತಿಮ ಆಶೆ.
The humiliation endured across generations and the dream of Talakadu. All of it coming down to this moment. Why do people loot? Think about it. In medieval India, a soldier did not go to war for a salary. He went because one victory could change his entire life. The wealth of a defeated kingdom, the gold, the grain, the jewelry, the livestock, all of it became fair game the moment the battle was won. That was the unwritten contract between a king and his army. You fight for me, you risk your life for me, and when we win, you take what you want to carry. This is how armies stayed loyal. This is how wars were fought. This is simply how the world worked. And then we have Shantala Devi, a queen who looked at this entire system and said, this is not acceptable. And a king, Vishnuvardhana, who actually listened to his wife. Did it work? Did the army revolt? Did this decision cost them the war or win them something far greater? That is the journey we are going on today. Hi, I am Ashwini. Welcome to the episode 2 of the Hoysala series. In episode 1, we watched young Bitti Deva inherit a shattering deathbed promise to reclaim Karnataka's honor from the mighty Cholas. Today, we march with his army and we will see how that one conversation between a king and his queen the night before the march changed not just a battle but an entire civilization. Let us begin. With the armies ready and every sacred ritual complete, Vishnuvardhana found a rare moment of stillness, time with his wife, Queen Shantala Devi. Now, history remembers Shantala Devi as one of the most remarkable queens Karnataka has ever produced. Many believe the Shila Balikas, the celestial dancers carved into the walls of Belur and Halebeedu, were inspired by her grace and brilliance. A queen celebrated not just for her beauty, but for her intellect, her devotion, her mastery of dance, and her deep cultural vision. But on this particular night, Shantala Devi was not speaking as a queen. She was speaking as a human being. She reminded Vishnuvardhana of something most kings preferred not to think about. Whenever one kingdom captures another, the people who suffer the most are never the kings. They are the villagers, the women, the children, and the innocent people. And she said this to her husband, King Vishnuvardhana, in your journey toward Talakadu, promise me one thing. Your soldiers must not kill innocent people. They must not harass women. They must not loot villages.
ಸ್ವಾಮಿ, ತಲಕಾಡಿನತ್ತ ಹೊರಡುವ ಈ ಯಾತ್ರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಕೊಡಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೈನಿಕರು ನಿರಪರಾಧ ಜನರ ಪ್ರಾಣ ತೆಗೆಯಬಾರದು. ಅವರು ಸ್ತ್ರೀಯರಿಗೆ ಕಿರುಕುಳ ನೀಡಬಾರದು. ಅವರು ಹಳ್ಳಿಗಳನ್ನು ಲೂಟಿ ಮಾಡಬಾರದು. ರಾಜರ ಮಹತ್ವಾಕಾಂಕ್ಷೆಗಳಿಗಾಗಿ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಜನರು ಯಾಕೆ ನೋವು ಅನುಭವಿಸಬೇಕು? ಯುದ್ಧವು ರಾಜರ ನಡುವೆ ನಡೆಯಲಿ, ಅದರ ಭಾರವನ್ನು ಜನರು ಹೊರುವಂತಾಗಬಾರದು.
Why should common people suffer for the lofty ambitions of rulers? In that moment, Shantala Devi was the conscience of the empire. And that night, Vishnuvardhana made her a promise. The next morning, King Vishnuvardhana summoned his commander Gangaraja and issued an order almost unheard of in medieval warfare. No looting, no harm to civilians, no harassment of women and children. Now, Ganga Raja was a very practical man. He understood what this meant on the ground. Most soldiers were not fighting for glory or dharma, they were fighting because they were really poor, because feeding their families depended on what they could bring back. Looting was not tradition for many of these men, it was just survival. Forbidding it could destroy everything before the march could even begin. Vishnuvardhana listened to every concern that Ganga Raja raised, and then he did something that I think is extraordinary. He gave every soldier a choice. He said, any soldier unwilling to follow this code is free to leave right now. No punishment, no humiliation, full payment for every day of service until today. Walk home in peace. Now think about what this moment represents. From the Hoysalas to the Vijayanagara Empire to the Vodayars, there's a thread running through Karnataka's political culture that I find deeply remarkable. A thread of dialogue, a thread of consultation and individual choice. Vishnuvardhana was not forcing loyalty through fear, he was giving his people the dignity of choosing for themselves. And when human beings are treated with dignity, they rise beyond expectation. Every soldier stayed not because they were ordered to, but because they believed in the king. And then Vishnuvardhana made one more promise. Every ounce of Chola wealth captured after victory would be distributed directly among the soldiers. That announcement moved through the ranks like fire, and the Hoysala army began its march toward Talakadu. Now here is where the story gets really interesting. As the Hoysala forces entered Chola controlled territory, the discipline was remarkable. Villages were not burnt, homes were not looted, women moved freely without fear, even animals were not hunted recklessly during the march. And word spread faster than the army itself. Village after village watched these soldiers pass through not as destroyers but almost as protectors. Slowly, fear transformed into something nobody expected, affection. Affection became hospitality. Villagers started coming out of their homes. Milk, ghee, curd, fruits, festive food voluntarily offered to an advancing army. And some soldiers were quietly asking each other as they marched, are we heading toward a brutal war or toward a wedding celebration? Whole regions began surrendering without the Hoysalas needing to raise even their sword. Now think about what was actually happening here. For the people of these regions, years under Chola rule had meant watching their Kannada identity slowly fade, watching their cultural spaces shrink, feeling like outsiders in their own land. Vishnuvardhana was not arriving as a conqueror, he was arriving as a liberator. Before a single major battle had been fought, the Hoysalas had already won something far greater than territory, the hearts of the people. Inside Talakadu, a very different atmosphere was taking shape. The Chola commander Adai Gaman received reports of the advancing Hoysala army and he dismissed them entirely. Who are these Hoysalas? He reportedly said, a new child among kingdoms. His ministers advised striking early before Vishnuvardhana could get even close. But Adai Gaman refused. His plan was actually quite calculated. Let them come deep into our territory, let them feel confident, let them feel close. Then we surround them, cut off every escape route and finish them. On paper, not a bad strategy, but Adai Gaman had missed something fundamental. The emotional ground beneath Talakadu had already shifted. The region had been renamed Rajarajapura under Chola rule. Kannada influence had been systematically suppressed, Jain basadis neglected and destroyed. The people were not going to fight for the Cholas, they were going to watch. And Adai Gaman had no idea of what was coming ahead of him. The first real test came at Jananathapura, present-day Malangi. A heavily fortified Chola settlement, strong walls, experienced defenders fully prepared. On the very first day, the Hoysalas suffered badly. Every ladder raised toward the battlements was met with boiling water from above and a relentless rain of arrows. Soldiers pulled back. Concern spread through the map. How do you defeat a fort like this? This is where something fascinating enters the story. In episode 1, we talked about Gauracharya, the man whose story Tarasu preserved in Kannada literature. Whether Gauracharya existed exactly as described, the historical record does not confirm, but the carving at Belur exists, and the question it raises has never been fully answered. What we know is this: Vishnuvardhana observed the interior of Jananathapura carefully through an optical instrument, the Duradarshaka created by Gauracharya, and noticed something completely ordinary. In front of almost every house inside the fort lay massive heaps of dry grass, fodder stored for animals. That was all he needed. That night, a small group of carefully selected archers silently climbed the trees surrounding the fort. Complete darkness, total silence, flaming arrows prepared. One instruction: everyone fires simultaneously at a separate grass heap, then disappears immediately. Moments later, the night sky erupted. Fire spread through the fort with terrifying speed. Panic exploded inside, smoke, chaos, soldiers running in every direction. And at that exact moment, Vishnuvardhana launched the full assault. Jananathapura fell faster than anyone had imagined, not because of brute force, because of observations, patience, and strategy. But the greatest obstacle was still waiting: the Kaveri River. Talakadu on the other side, so close and completely unreachable. The Hoysala boats had already been destroyed by the Cholas weeks earlier. Heavy rains had swollen the river. Swimming across was not possible. Despair began settling into the camp. They had come this far, and now the river itself was stopping them. And then a soldier came running into the camp, breathless. Prabhu, we found boats. How? The Cholas destroyed everything. Our boats, yes, but Jananathapura fell so quickly, so unexpectedly, that the Chola defenders fled before they could destroy their own supplies. Their coracles and rafts are sitting untouched inside their own warehouses. To Vishnuvardhana, this did not feel like luck. It felt like the blessings of the Kaveri River herself. That very night, preparations began. Not a single torch was lit, absolute silence. Soldiers, horses, weapons, chariots all loaded slowly onto the captured coracles in complete darkness, every moment careful, every breath controlled. The entire Hoysala army crossed the Kaveri in silence. And as they touched the far bank and approached Talakadu, the fort was completely silent. That silence disturbed everyone. The fires of Jananathapura had lit up the night sky just hours earlier. From Talakadu, the Cholas would certainly have seen the flames. So why was the fort completely quiet? Gangaraja sensed a trap immediately. Every soldier tightened his grip on his weapon. But when the Hoysalas entered Talakadu, they found something nobody had expected. Fear had already conquered the fort before they arrived. The speed of Jananathapura's fall had shattered Chola morale entirely. Rumors had spread like wildfire through the garrison. The Hoysalas use black magic. Vishnuvardhana has supernatural powers. Nothing can stop them. In sheer panic, the Chola garrison had already fled through the Suranga Margas, the secret underground tunnels connecting the fort to surrounding regions. Empty corridors, deserted battlements, silence where war had been expected. The Hoysalas walked into Talakadu almost without any resistance. After nearly 2 centuries of Chola dominance over this region, the moment generations of Hoysalas had waited for had finally arrived. Now only one thing remained: Adaigaman, the man who had called them a new child among kingdoms. Vishnuvardhana moved through the empty palace with years of fury burning inside him. The oath of Veeraballala.
ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೇವ ಚೋಳರನ್ನು ಸೋಲಿಸು, ಚಾಲುಕ್ಯರನ್ನು ಮಣಿಸು, ತಲಕಾಡನ್ನು ಮರಳಿ ಪಡೆ, ಹೊಯ್ಸಳರ ಗೌರವವನ್ನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಎತ್ತಿ ಹಿಡಿ. ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಅಂತಿಮ ಆಶೆ.
The humiliation endured across generations and the dream of Talakadu. all of it coming down to this moment. Corridor after corridor, room after room, until finally in one of the chambers, cornered and alone, they found him, Adaigaman. Vishnuvardhana drew his sword, but before the blade could fall, Adaigaman's wife rushed forward and fell at the king's feet, begging for mercy. And in that moment, Vishnuvardhana's mind went somewhere else entirely. Back to a quiet palace room the night before the march, a queen who had said, "Do not let vengeance consume your humanity." Slowly, the king lowered his sword. The court stood in stunned silence. Adaigaman was spared. Now, here is the irony of this entire story. The man who had dismissed the Hoysalas as insignificant as a newborn baby in kingdoms, who had built his entire strategy around underestimating them, ended up sheltered by them, protected by them, and eventually became an ally who helped weaken Chola influence across the southern regions. This is not just a military outcome, that is a statement about the kind of kingdom the Hoysalas were building. As news of Talakadu spread, celebrations erupted across the Hoysala kingdom. But what happened in the days immediately after the victory is perhaps the most revealing part of this entire story. His soldiers, after years of accumulated anger, were ready to retaliate. Many moved toward Chola temples and settlements. But there they found Hoysala soldiers already standing guard. Vishnuvardhana had anticipated this. He had quietly assigned special units to protect temples and sacred structures from his own army's vengeance. The Vaidyanatheshwara temple, the Arkeshwara temple, the Maruleshwara temple, all protected and not destroyed. And today the Kirti Narayana temple still stands in Talakadu, built by Vishnuvardhana to commemorate his victory over the Cholas. Kirti is glory, Narayana is Vishnu. It's Kirti Narayana. Even the name of the temple was a quiet declaration. Military victories establish kingdoms, but what you choose to protect after winning, this is what creates a civilization. And from this moment, something extraordinary began. The wars were over, the kingdom was stable, and Vishnuvardhana and Shantala Devi turned their attention to something no army could ever build, a civilizational vision. Soapstone, when freshly quarried, is relatively soft. It allowed Hoysala sculptors to achieve detail that seems physically impossible. Before the stone hardened over time, their hands could go places that no other material allowed. Jewelry carved so delicately it almost feels wearable. Fingernails, eyelets, fabric folds, hair strands, emotions frozen permanently into stone. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavata, dance, music, devotion, the Hoysala sculptors left no empty space. Every inch of stone carried a story. Stone itself became storytelling. Let me bring you back to where we began today. We began with a simple question. Why do people loot? Because one battle victory could change a soldier's life forever. That was the world Vishnuvardhana was operating in. And into that world came a queen who said, "Not on my watch," and a king who listened. The Cholas had the larger army, the stronger forts, the longer legacy. But Vishnuvardhana had understood something they had forgotten. You do not build an empire by conquering people. You build it by making them feel seen. Today, centuries later, people do not travel across Karnataka to find the battlefield of Talakadu. They travel to stand speechless before Beluru, before Halebeedu, before Somanathapura, not because the Hoysalas won their wars, but because of the beauty they chose to leave behind. The Kirti Narayana temple still stands in Talakadu. The Shila Balikas of Belur are still dancing. The promise Vishnuvardhana made to Shantala Devi that quiet night before the march is still standing. Thank you for watching and please subscribe.